Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stone? Here. Mr. Pasqualakis?
Here.
Mr. Kostadakis?
Here.
Ms. Ramsey?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Ms. Register? Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Chairman West?
Here. All right. Do we have a motion with respect to approval of minutes for the December 11, 2013 meeting?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Aye. Do we have a second? All those in favor? Say aye. 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 All opposed? Like sign? Passes unanimously. All right. Public comments. Do we have any public comments? John? Ladies, are you here for a specific item on the agenda? Oh, okay. Very good.
John Nixon, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I don't know if you all are allowed to put out an RFP or can push an RFP for things to do. I know Pam has spoken at City Commission meetings, and her reference is that she likes Sarasota. People go down there, they pay a lot for hotel rooms, and they just sit and watch the ocean. I don't think that goes well for Daytona Beach. She doesn't like any additional things. But as I walk in the morning, I keep thinking of things that could be done with the property that we have on the boardwalk. This past one was, I walked over that archway that was needed when we had traffic on the beach. It's no longer needed. It's dark all the time. There's no lighting. I'm suggesting that we put a hot dog vendor up there, put some tables, some umbrellas, little hot dog cart to get a view and some activity on that arch. Also light up the sides of it so when you're coming down Main Street, you can see the arch because you've got floodlights on it. You're on the beach, you see floodlights on it. We have to do things of that nature because I believe we need as many things as possible for the tourists to do. I was just talking to one of the workers in one of the shops, and they said, well, what is there to do in Daytona Beach? There's nothing for families to do. Again, going back to my idea of having what downtown has is a brochure that tells you all the things, all the places to go. There are shops on Beachside, although someone says that there are no shops, there is no shopping whatsoever on Beachside. There are a ton of shops, and some good quality shops as well. Okay? Some of them are here. There are things to do. Some of you are involved in amusements. There are things for families to do. There's shopping to do. We don't let anybody know. So I'm asking that perhaps we can have some kind of way of doing highest and best use of all the property. I'd like to see a children's park in front of the Hilton with a water splash park there. Not that you need a guard, but just that the water bubbles and there are things for 0 to 10, 12 years old that can be a magnet, because Rainbow Park in Ormond is a magnet. People come from Oak Hill, they come down from Flagler to go to Rainbow Park. Why can't we have one here? So if we can think of as many things to do, horseshoe on the beach, volleyball courts on the beach, the more we can have people do, the more they will enjoy themselves here and the longer they will stay. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Ladies? If you just state your name and address, please, when you get to the podium.
I'm Cheryl House. I live at 145 North Halifax. And I'm here to propose that we beautify our Main Street area by starting with the ground and working our way up. My proposal is that we copy the bricks that are on the streets up in New Smyrna. They're also in many other cities as well. We've done a little bit of research on how profitable this could be for Daytona, and I have a few of these that Reed is going to pass out, and you can show them what a typical brick that's 4 by 8 looks like. There's 3 different types of engraving in that. The top one is the most visible, I think, at a distance. For 90 of these bricks engraved, they charge, this particular company that we have information from, charges $15.80. The total cost is $1,422. The revenue is $9,000. So with the expenses that go along with that, the total profit to Daytona for 90 bricks is $8,562. they've done this in many places, and it's just a great way for people to leave a little bit of memorabilia behind and make the city beautiful. The walkways that are on Main Street right now really do need replacement. They're uneven and they're unattractive. And I just think that if we could, during the events that occur on Main Street, sell our bricks for $100 each, we can make a fairly decent amount of money. And I think there would be a lot of people interested in buying them. I really think that this would work. So, do you have any questions?
Any questions?
What's the cost of installing them?
Well, that I don't know. I think that would be up to the city. I believe maybe Reed would be better to address that issue. I have no clue. You have bricks. We have engraved bricks on the boardwalk that have the names of race drivers. There's over 20,000 of them up there. So it's been done, and it's been done by the city, obviously. And the beautiful brickwork that's on Beach Street, obviously somebody has that expertise. I do not. This is just an idea I have.
Any other questions? Reed?
I just want to mention that as staff, we will be looking at this. I think we brought up at the commission.
Yes.
We did. And so we'll be looking at how this might be able to be incorporated. And so thank you for the material.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks. Any other public comment? All right, moving on then to item number 5, DEV 2013-109, Site Plan 15 Boardwalk. Reed, do you have a presentation on that, or?
No, I do not have a presentation. We actually had a request for a continuance the other day. And so what I'd ask is if the applicant is here and could simply make that request of you to continue it to the next meeting. Would you do that, Don?
Don Henderson, 315 North Atlantic Avenue, Daytona Beach. I'd like to make a formal request to move this to the next meeting.
Okay. Any objections to that? Do we need a motion on that? Yes. All right. Do we have a motion to continue it to the next meeting?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? None. You got your continuance. Thank you.
Carrie, I'm not supposed to vote on that, or am I supposed to state my...
It's just a continuance. You weren't voting on the...
What's that?
It's a continuance. You weren't voting on the merits, but if the
I kept
record,
quiet
just to be
during that whole
clean...
process.
Okay, yeah. Just mark down that Mr. Paspalakis did not vote in that matter. And for the record, the date is February 12th.
So should I give you this, or not?
No, don't worry about it.
All right.
I have a conflict of interest also. Do I need to do that? I thought on just a continuance it didn't matter.
Okay, and the next meeting, you'll need to do a form?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we'll have a
Am I okay on that vote
to
continue it?
So we
to be
better have
safe,
enough
we'll do
people
5-0.
present next month,
Yeah.
or we won't have a quorum.
Yeah, well, everybody will need to show up so we have a quorum if we have 2 people abstaining. So.
Except Dino and me.
Well, wouldn't we have a quorum and then simply a majority of the vote?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay.
So it would need at least 3 votes to pass.
Okay. We all clear on the procedures here then? All the conflicts are handled? Okay. Moving on to item number 6, DEV 2013-133, rezoning planned redevelopment district 110 South Ocean Avenue. Reed, what do we have on that?
We have a great project, but I don't have an applicant at this time in the audience.
Does that mean we can't proceed with it, or?
I would recommend moving on with your other items, and hopefully they'll show up. And if they're not here by then, we could probably ask for a continuance if that's what.
Well, we're proceeding with the other items. I happen to have the applicant's cell phone number. If the applicant happens to be from Ocean Deck, and I could call if you want.
Sure.
Are you expecting them?
It'd be better if Reed calls.
Okay. Well, let me give give you their number.
Okay.
Say it on the record.
You want to take a break?
Sure. Why don't we just take a couple minutes and give you a chance to give them a call? At least we'll know where we're at. The record reflect that Carrie Register has now appeared.
Thank you.
And we will then move on to number 7, discussion items, special events first, and then we got drive-through facilities and fees in lieu of parking. The special events is what I've been trying to bring up for a while now, and we delayed a few times. Reed has handed out to you another a separate package when you got here that you've seen before, and this is the issues about Bike Week, Biketoberfest special events, and some thoughts I have about how we can try and get Bike Week a little more managed. I would hope that everybody that's on this board is here because we want to see Main Street improve and the area improve. And I think it's hard to, disagree that it's not been improving the last 20 years. And we've been seeing a lot of different changes. We got the E-zone implemented. That's supposed to be putting an entertainment overlay and have residents and business all working together. What I've done is I've looked at, as I think you know, I live right down in that area and been there for actually right by Main Street for 16 plus years now, I guess it is. But I've got some suggested revisions to the master plan guidelines, and have no idea whether they would be acceptable or not, but I have some pictures I want to show from Bike Week last year, and that'll kind of let you see the perspective of where some of these proposed revisions are coming from. And if we could go ahead with those. And okay, this is, I just showed the picture of the establishment, and then I'm showing how the bands are set up and such. And this is at the Boot Hill. You'll see their band is in a tent. It's got slow down.
Sorry, I had it on auto.
Oh, okay, yeah. They have a tent enclosure at the backside. They've got some on the sides of the where the band area is. Granted, they may have it more for rain and such, but also that kind of sound protection helps with the noise going back into the neighborhoods and such too, if you try and keep it in the area where it's going to be enjoyed. So this is just one example. And you also, I don't know if you can see there very well, but their speakers were all set down low, more or less at ground level, nothing up real high, which I think is also conducive to not blasting over into the neighborhoods. And if we could roll on then, please. All right, this is Main Street Station, immediately next door to the Boot Hill. And they have actually here at Main Street Station, they set up 2 bands on one piece of property. And Main Street Station, Teresa, when did they open back up? About 10 years ago, 8 years ago? When did they opened up? Something like that. Somewhere in that ballpark. And anyway, so if we could go to the next slide. We're going to show, this is the front stage that's immediately beside Boot Hill, right out by the sidewalk. And some of you may remember there was a big issue last year. They almost lost their right to have any outside bands because they were set up too close to the sidewalk and street compared to their site plan. But you see speakers. They've got large speakers on the ground level. They got speakers up in the air. And that whole setup there probably goes up in the air maybe 12 to 14 feet or so. Next slide, please. This is their backstage area where you'll notice the stage is probably 4 times the size and goes up much higher. And when they set up at full, they've got speakers stretched up in the air probably 16 feet. And they have absolutely nothing to keep noise from going behind to the sides or anywhere. With the second stage, and that's maybe 100, 120 feet from the other stage. And they'll have both bands playing at the same time. Okay? Next slide, please. This is just showing right beside Main Street Station. They set all these vendors up. The vendors encroach over into the sidewalk area. They set trash cans up on the sidewalks. It makes it very difficult to walk down these side streets because there's really no control going on with respect to how they're using the sidewalks and things on these side streets. And I just find it difficult to get around with all that. Next, please. This is across the street. This is a large tent setup for another large, even larger band setup, almost directly across the street. And if you go to the next slide, please. This is from the side view, just showing you how far up those speakers and such are. That's a whole rows of speakers being stretched out in front of the stage cover there. And I think this band setup is what was causing an awful lot of noise pollution to go all the way past and north of Seabreeze and such, because they were totally out of control and playing as loud as they could. And there's absolutely nothing in there to try and control or contain either the volume or where the direction of the music and sound was going. Next, please. All right, where are we at here?
I think it's the same place.
I think it's the same place. Yeah, that's inside under the tent, just showing you the same setup.
Is that the facility next to the dog house or tower?
Wise Guys, I think.
Okay, Wise Guys.
Okay. And I
then
don't
it was
think
Mikey Loves, I think.
Yeah, they didn't set up this last time, did they? Because
No. It was empty this past Bike
Yeah,
Fest.
yeah,
Yeah, they didn't set up.
yeah. Moving on then. Okay, this is trying to show you a few examples of what I think are better ways to set them up. And this is the moon, full moon or whatever. Next, please. This is just showing perspective. And this is just showing smaller stages, more contained. They have some backdrops on them, and it actually causes far less problems than those large monster stages that are being set up. Next. Dirty Harry's is another good example. You'll see there's a backdrop going there. They have it turned. Predominantly the speakers are lower. They do have some up high, but they also control their speakers much better through some of the electronics to, it's the compression, I think, on the speakers.
It's an adjustment. They can set it so the sound is killed at a certain distance.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference. Okay, one time last year, the Boot Hill had a band set up, and it was just like blowing through the house. And I went over and talked to them. They just made the adjustment, and it was over. And so a lot can be done by the bands and how they set up and how they control their speakers. But right now, there's really no rules or regulations as to how they're to do that with respect to how they set up for Bike Week and such. So, so what I did was I went through the guidelines, and at the back of what was handed out here is my suggested revisions, and I'm just going to walk through them and see if there's any interest. But the first thing I talk about is what is contiguous. The second page of this handout shows the master plan guidelines, and on the first page they define contiguous as to mean, well, parcels which abut each other, but in addition they can be contiguous if they're across the street, not separated by more than 60 feet. And so what this permits is somebody who has a business on one side of the street to deem contiguous his property across the street, and probably the worst offender on that was the rec, when they would, well, it's across the street, it's contiguous, and so therefore we can set up over there. And I don't think that's contiguous. I think we want to have things adjacent to each other, truly contiguous, and so therefore eliminate the 60-foot being able to be across the street or across an alleyway or whatever, because you get a lot of efforts to create larger parcels by having things be contiguous under this definition. Next I would propose, this was to allow the setup of events on parking areas, because what happens is if you have a 10-day event and you set up for a full week before and you take almost a week afterwards to tear down, you've effectively killed all parking for 3 weeks. And I'm trying to shorten that down. The next item I've got is the tent size, is limiting the size of tents you can put on property. My proposal was to limit it to 100% of the interior covered roof area. So if you've got 1,000 square feet of building, you could have 1,000 square feet of tent. So you'd end up with 1,000 square feet of building and 10,000 square feet of tent.
Now, on this one, are you, when you're talking about tents, you're talking about tents that are there for the purpose of selling, or if a stage is under a tent, are you including that?
It would include a stage too.
Okay.
Yeah, my concept is trying to get motivation back to having buildings
Okay.
as opposed to vast empty lots that are used for tent setup. The bottle restriction is simply saying don't sell glass bottles outside because there's been issues with people, broken bottles, and especially with all the college kids, and I think that's getting to be a trend now where we're going to be stuck with college spring break overlapping on bike week because of what they've done with the race weeks and everything. That's going to be pretty much the norm. And so you're getting all these college kids and all their flip-flops and such. Porta-johns. Some facilities, like Teresa's and such, have good porta-john setups. Main Street Station, nothing. Okay? Not one. That huge property at Main Street Station, 2 band setups, all that food, all that going on, and they don't put up a single porta-john out there. Okay? And so I believe that there should be a minimum requirement of a certain number of porta-johns, and I did a little math, and I came up with a minimum of 1 per site or 1 per 2,000 square foot of the parcel size. Okay? And that way, at least there's a requirement that there be some porta-johns there because there's been issues with, especially with the college kids, a lot of public urination and all this going on. And I think if you're going to be selling food and beer and liquor and such, you better be able to take care of the other end of the deal. Amplified sound issues. I think they should be limited to no more than 1 band amplified sound stage per property.
Before you go on, from the bars that you visit, is Main Street Station the only one that has more than one?
Yes.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
all I'm gonna know.
Yeah. It's just when you get Main Street Station with its 2 bands going, immediately beside that is the Boot Hill with its band going. Across the street was that monster tent setup. You're getting all these bands playing at the same time. It's total chaos. And they all want to play louder so they can be heard. And so everybody just keeps getting louder. And that's what's happened over the many years is everybody just keeps ratcheting it up a little bit at a time. And it gets to the point where I think it's out of control when you get multiple bands on one parcel and no regulation whatsoever as to how close you're going to set these bands up to each other.
Now, wait, before you go to the next one.
Okay.
Is the current land development code at 70 decibels per?
The 70 decibels is what's in that's how they defined an outside, or I mean anything under 70 you're not going to worry about. Okay. And I believe that's the provision in the
Because for some
noise
reason
ordinance.
90 sticks in my head, and I don't know.
No, 90 is getting loud.
Okay, all right. So 70 is the current code?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was just trying to establish that.
Which is already in existence?
Yeah, it's already there, and it's basically ignored throughout bike week.
I think, isn't it something where it's 70 and then at a certain time it reduces, or?
Supposed to, yes.
Okay, do you know what, staff, Reed,
I think it's midnight.
Okay, at midnight, and there's no provision for a reduction of after 70, right?
It's.
There's a special guideline for bike week, amplified sound.
Okay, it's separate, it's guideline for bike week.
Well, there's supposed to be, but I believe last year, Carrie, I think, concurred with me that the noise ordinance is not thrown out for bike week. It's just, it is ignored, though. Okay, and I'm not asking that it be terribly enforced. It's just, but it's, if you manage the bands, try to space them a little more, put some backing behind them, and deal with the compression and such on them, it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you as you're going along,
No,
but it's best that we, if you're going to talk about every item, we talk we move on to the next after we address the questions on the existing item.
Sounds good to me, Dino. All right, one stage per site location. I also propose that they not have them more than within 300 feet of each other, and that seemed to me to lay out, actually that's almost duplicative of having one per location, but.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
The only one that would violate that would be the two stages at the Main Street station.
Except, for example, if you take the Main Street station versus the Boot Hill, I will bet those bands are not spaced more than 150 feet apart. Okay.
Well, then I don't think it would be fair to
Well,
tell
no, you
either.
move the one around the back. You let them have the one set up in the back, and that way you could have two bands going. You have Main Street Station and their parcel in the back. You got Boot Hill over here.
The problem with that is that if you gave the Main Street station a choice, he would probably choose the one facing Main Street. So, I mean, so far I've been agreeable to everything that you said, but on that one, I might be, inclined to limit it to one per site, but, let the guy choose whether it's in the front. It might be better that is on Main Street versus the back because he's closer to the residents.
I agree. I agree. So,
What about bars with internal stages?
internal we don't care about, as long as they keep their noise inside.
So that wouldn't qualify as one of their bands?
No. That's why I say as long as they keep the decibel, the noise inside, we don't care. Okay? And then I propose that the stages all be enclosed on the back, sides, and tops with a double layer of tarping. I think it can make a huge difference. And it shouldn't be that big of a burden on them to do that. And also that they be kind of directed towards Main Street, not into the neighborhoods and such. That they be used simply for music purposes, not for the selling of goods and such like that. Some of them like to get into trying to market things and such like that. And it's one thing to have the music playing, it's another to have that going on. And that's actually also already supposed to be a violation of city ordinance to be doing that. But it's not in the guidelines, so they feel they can do it.
They do have contests sometimes,
Yeah, that's not a big deal.
Okay,
It's
the
when they start
contest-
selling drinks and such like that.
Okay, so if I were to adjust this one, then I would be striking out the word contest from
Okay.
the stuff. Okay.
The next proposal I had, and I know this one will cause some heartburn, is on Sunday night through the weeknights, cut the outside music off at midnight. Okay? I know that's hard for Main Street, but let me ask where else, anywhere we can think of, anywhere near residential, near hotels and such, do they have outdoor amplified bands playing after midnight?
Ormond Beach, Holly Hill. It's just
Maybe it's a Daytona area thing. But I just think if you're going to want to have hotels come into that area and people want to living within that area, you've got to have something that protects the neighborhoods too. And it's a quality of life thing, and I just don't think they need to be playing that, Sunday night through. Let them have it on Friday and Saturday night, but why through the whole week? But another minor thing was the posting of prices. I've heard comments about people talking about different prices being charged, and they think they're ordering something, and they get up there, and then it costs way more than they thought it was going to, and such. So, then the trash containers. I think all trash containers need to be located within their property lines, not set out on the sidewalk and such. And then master plan application, that everything has to be put down on a scale drawing. That incident with Main Street Station last year was all over because they didn't have proper scale drawings. They just had a sketch, and, where is it really supposed to be? And that was a big dispute. And how can they possibly review them if it's not drawn to scale and such? And I actually think that the staff would be very receptive to that idea. and have, approved scale dimension drawings as part of the master plan application. So those are just my thoughts. I just put them out there.
Can I add one to it?
You may add anything you would like.
Because this issue came up and for some reason it hasn't come back before the board, but any newly demolished building on Main Street would not be able to enjoy any of these outdoor events that are enjoyed by, the rest of the property, like grandfather in existing properties on Main, existing vacant properties. And once we set that day, any new buildings that are to be demolished will not be able to have itinerant vending on that site. And I said this before. In Teresa's case, it was done properly, but there's other people on Main Street,
I don't think Teresa's putting itinerant vending on hers, anyways. So
yeah, but it wasn't.
The concept is let's draw a line.
Let's draw a line
and say if you tear a building down after this, you don't get to put itinerant vendors
because
and
you've
such
seen
on.
more buildings demolished on Main Street than you have seen buildings go up on Main Street over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the reason for it, is the itinerant
Yeah,
vending.
I would fully.
Which I don't know if we needed to address an earlier comment, but I mean, obviously, we're dealing with the vending and stuff like that, and we had John Nicholson, who I'm sure still in the audience, talk about hot dog carts, and I'm definitely not going to be in favor of that. But anyways, okay. I mean, we had many people have a problem with vending to begin with, when you operate year-round businesses and you have to compete against these people, but yeah, I would like to put in a drop-dead date on the demolition of buildings.
Okay.
Didn't that came back, I thought we asked for some wording because we had some discussion about we didn't want to exclude somebody that demolished a building and built a new building on it, and so we wanted to make sure the wording was right.
Well, that was in a discussion about the Land Development Code, and right now we're talking about Bike Week guidelines. And so, and really, from a policy standpoint, if we're going to be doing some of this, this is a forum, if you're going to be introducing this or wanting this to move forward from here, for any kind of consideration for a change in the policy. Let's start here.
So you're saying this will be the appropriate place to place the...
Well, I think it is in terms of policy and because it's all going to tie together.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, discussion?
The only thing I see... Excuse me. The only thing I'm not wholeheartedly disagreeing with is the exterior amplified sound ceasing on Sunday through Thursday. Could there be any maybe reducing the decibels? Because I know there's a lot of establishments that have bands.
That just won't work. I don't have a problem deleting anything on here that you all aren't comfortable with. This is just a laundry list. But I just think that would be helpful to creating an environment that other businesses and residents and such can exist in much easier if they only got to put up without loud bands after midnight 2 nights a week instead of 7 nights a week. But, I'm willing for baby steps.
I'm just thinking that the whole lure and appeal would be going to see a band for most of the visitors, and cutting that at midnight might draw them away to another side of town, which I can see the vendors probably not appreciating that.
I would almost, when you go down to Main Street, especially on a weeknight after midnight, it's
kind of dies out.
It's dying down anyways. Okay, but it's a thought. I'm glad to remove that and go for something that if we can get some approval on other things and such. So.
I mean, are we looking for an approval tonight? Because if we are, I have a way. I mean, I could form a motion based on this discussion.
If we want to place a motion based upon it and such and entertain it, that's fine with me. I mean, it's been discussed and brought up for over a year now. So
yeah, and we keep
bouncing it.
I mean, most of it's already pretty easily agreeable. Of course, bottle restrictions. Porta Johns is a big issue there. I think there's a couple bars that have one or two.
Or none.
Yeah, or none. Contiguous. I mean, the only place I've ever seen go against that would be the Main Street not Main Street Station, the Rec, when they had the parking crowd across the street. That was the only time I ever saw that happen.
There's some others down there that have used the contiguous issue to their advantage.
I guess my only issue with it would just be the amplified sound ceasing at midnight on Sunday through Thursday. The rest of it I would totally agree with.
I don't know that, are we going in order or just random, or? I'll make a few comments whenever you want.
Why don't you go ahead, Teresa?
Okay. I'll start at the end of your recommendations, guidelines, suggested revisions. First of all, and you all may know this or you may not know this, but there is a very deliberate process in this master plan event in which anyone who wants to go outside has to submit a site plan and an application along with a fee of $300 just for the opportunity, and then there's a fee based on the amount of square footage of sales space they have, and that goes in with the application. And their application is supposed to be to scale, and it's supposed to include, it asks a wide variety of questions. And that application, to my understanding, is reviewed by all of the various departments within the city for approval, whether it's traffic or sanitation or garbage or zoning. And then there is a meeting called, and all of the applicants are invited to attend, as well as the various representatives from the departments within the city. And there is a careful review and feedback given, and usually there's some adjustments made if needed or requested, and then they come into compliance. And this is all in the process of preparing the applications to meet what our suitable standards is set up, so that many of the things that you talk about, such as portalets and all, are planned for and required. Honestly, I'm surprised to hear that, like, some of the bars didn't have them because
It's not in the guidelines, Teresa.
I think on the application it is.
But what I'm saying is they have to follow, supposedly, the master plan guidelines. And there's no reference to those in the guidelines.
Well, again, I don't have the application in front of me, but I think it is a requirement on there, and I don't think they'll get a recommendation for approval without it. But if point well taken. But so, I mean, and they're supposed to be to scale, and it's supposed to show all of the physical elements, of their outside venue, stages, stage height, the direction, the equipment, so.
But it doesn't say some of the things as to what those equipment should be.
It has some stuff in it, and it doesn't have some other stuff in it. Yeah. So, but there is a process, and there is a very careful and detailed review by the city of the site plans. I don't have an issue with you on the trash. Posting of prices. Okay, what you're saying is all existing facilities and any vendors shall prominently post prices for any product, merchandise, food, drink, or service. I really think that's an intrusive move into private business. I really think it's not the domain of this board to make that. I think they need to keep. I disagree with that. Okay. So, amplified sound. All right.
Yes, you don't want the posting of prices?
I think that's the prerogative of the business. I don't think it's the Department of Business Regulation. They tell me a lot of things, but they don't tell me I have to do that. I mean, but this board is going to tell me I have to do that? Please. Is that?
I completely agree with Teresa. I think that's very inappropriate. I
It's
think
very appropriate or
inappropriate
inappropriate?
to do that. You're crossing over into private business, making somebody post their prices or not. I don't even understand why would you even consider that. I agree with Teresa.
I think Florida law states unless you're adding things other than tax, you don't have to post a price.
No.
If you're including tax and everything else, you don't have to post a price.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that should definitely be stricken.
Yeah, I agree. Amplified sound. Again, the site plan requires detailed information as to the stage, the size of the stage, the height of the stage, the direction of the speakers. And as you know, as you have experienced yourself, there's a lot of latitude in sound. Is a very complicated subject, and it's variable based on conditions. It's very technical, and so much of it depends on the equipment. And just because a speaker is up high doesn't mean it's going to create any worse sound than a speaker that is low.
Is the current code of 70 decibels is it worded at any location immediately adjacent to the exterior of the building, or is it worded from the? I think it was something to do with the right of way or something.
I believe the guideline for Bike Week is based. It doesn't have a definitive decibel limit, and it's based on a community acceptable standard. And
I remember that there were police officers standing at a certain spot away from a stage with a
We're talking two different things. And under the noise ordinance, you've got, if it's counted exterior if you have it inside, windows or doors open, and it comes outside. Okay? And then once it comes outside, then it's subject to a 70 decibel limit, I think, and it may be 100 feet away or something like that, which is impossible to deal with. Okay? There's just, especially during Bike Week, there's no way you can stop all the other noise around and determine if that one is violating that. That's why I used the language that said immediately adjacent to it. So if they're having an interior band and blasting it outside, really at all, okay, that counts as an exterior band towards your one, okay, versus, and I don't know, Teresa, do people have interior bands and exterior bands during Bike Week?
I do.
You do,
At
okay.
Dirty Harry's, I have, in the bank, I have a band.
Okay.
And in the outside, I have a band.
Okay, but you're
The
in...
same thing at the Full Moon.
Yeah, but I've never seen an issue where that interior one is causing any issues.
We do have a window, and we do have some noise contamination that you're talking about. I think.
Cross-pollination?
Yeah, and we don't like it, but we don't like it. It's not good for sound, but we don't close the window.
Yeah, yeah.
We just sort of deal with it.
Boot Hill's the only other bar other than Full Moon and Bank of Blues that have interior stages during events.
Yeah.
But I don't think Boot Hill has one during Bike Week. Do they really?
They sometimes
I think they do.
inside.
I think they have two bands, inside and outside.
They must.
Yeah.
Anyways, the idea was to try and do it 100 feet away is impossible. I mean, there's just no way you can even regulate that. So that's why, and I think it may even be sick, I don't know, but I came up with, you just do it adjacent to it, and if they're putting more than that outside, then that counts as another band. But
Okay, but when you say adjacent to the exterior of the building, you're saying you're standing on the public right of way.
or no, you're adjacent to the building.
So let's say, okay, using the Full Moon, here's the stage. Where am I standing to take the 70 decibel?
No, it's only the interior one where the 70.
This is for the
Yeah,
interior.
that's only for the interior. That's just trying to avoid the noise coming outside.
Okay, all right.
Okay, that's all I'm trying to say there.
I don't think this one's as big of a problem as the exterior one, though.
I was trying to just clarify that if you're going to have an interior band, keep it interior, and if you're going to have, then you can have one exterior band. All right. For example, Main Street Station, what they would do, well, they would then go put the one band in one of the open enclosures they've got and call that one of theirs and call it interior. And yet they would still be cranking out probably just as loud as they would if they were on the stage outside.
I see what you're saying, but they would if I was standing there, I'd be hearing two songs at the same time. It would ruin my experience that I wouldn't go there, and they know that, because I mean that's it's one thing to have a band in the back of your tent and one in the front, and I agree.
Okay.
I could agree with you having two bands, but to put them right next to each other, it's going to ruin the experience for everybody.
You know better than I on the music, so.
No, I'm just. But
I'll continue.
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
Thursday nights is what we typically consider one of our top 4 nights of the event. It would be a hardship if we were to have to stop the outside sound at midnight. We have on our own softened our hours on the other nights, but that's our choosing. And,
What can we do when we get these, tent band setups that come in, and they're really just there for Bike Week, and they really don't give a damn about what's going on or anybody else or those that have to be there year round?
Well, I'll tell you, as a year-round operator, we do find it exasperating when we're there
Yeah, I mean, you got some
all
trying
year
to play by.
operating,
Mm-hmm.
usually in the red, 10 out of 12 months. And but we recognize the opportunities we have, and we're happy to be there. But if someone were to come in and not operate the requirement, or what I understand to be the requirement, and set up and operate big and, with liquor, which is a significant investment, it is frustrating, especially if, it's not good for the street and good for the city. We want to have a good and strong and vibrant Main Street. We want good business operations. I mean, I'm with you on that, Mr. Webster. But I guess the point overall that I want to make is that there is a task force for both of these events, and there is a lot of scrutiny on the site plans, and believe me, there's compliance officers out there checking the sound decibels, there's zoning officers checking, the vendors. I mean, the city takes a very active role in managing this event, in my opinion.
But you were here when the chamber representatives were here a year or so ago, and they basically said, we only do what we're told to do as far as the whole review and application process and what the guidelines require us to do. And they don't impose beyond that. Okay? And so...
Well, okay. Well, I'll keep going through the guidelines.
Okay.
You're suggested. Okay, it's a business operation, and you know what? There's no cover charge that I know of on Main Street, and if you're saying that the only way we can make this event pay for itself is through liquor sales or T-shirt sales or maybe some vendor income, God forbid. I know it's a touchy subject. I mean, these are our 10 days where we need to sell, and we have a platform. We have, we are very intent and focused on selling. I mean,
I
if you
completely
would
agree with that.
Yeah.
I do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's punitive, but financially.
Yes, if we can't,
What are we talking about?
well, if all we can do on our stage is the playing of music and not promotion of drinks or the sale of products or contests or trying to draw people in, that's, why, I think you're going way too far. On our stages, we do a lot of those other things besides just the music. And I apologize if you find it irritating, but we're businesses, and this is our opportunity to make money, to do business. I think when you get into designing and specifying at least 2 layers of tenting or soundproofing material to substantially reduce the sound, around stages, again, I think, I know it's well-intentioned. I'm not sure it's the right.
Then what is the right thing? What do we do to stop that backwash of noise when you have bands setting up with zero effort, like the Main Street and the other ones and such, and they're the worst offenders?
Are you saying the sound goes backwards?
Yeah.
I mean, it has to. I'm sure their speakers are sort of pointing forward. It's got to hit something and then cause it to. I'm not a sound expert, so I need to stay out of that. It's very complicated. Sound is a moving, live.
Yeah, I mean, I'm receptive to something
I don't know
technical,
the answer.
But all I know is that those that are set up similar to how you set yours up with some backdrop and then on the sides and such, it makes a big difference.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a sound expert. I hate to see us wade into technical areas.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I keep wanting to add to it. On the promotion of drinks or whatever, and this is a question for Carrie, is there any way that you could phrase this to such a way, because I know what the chairman's trying to accomplish, is there any way you could phrase it to where like the use of the sound system would be predominantly for the playing of music, like in other words, so that way nobody purposely just sets up a mic to say, hey, come on in, and just the system itself is the advertising of promotions or whatever is incidental to the overall picture. Is there a way to say that?
Worse
I'm
than that,
not
how
sure
do you
in a-
regulate it?
What's that?
How do you regulate it?
Can't regulate sound.
How do you regulate? I mean,
so that would
somebody's
be a
standing there
regulation
saying,
of
I don't know how you could make it liable,
That's what
what's
I'm saying.
predominantly
How do we quantify
or.
that? If there's not, then that might
Yeah.
be just something we have to totally, okay, all right, okay.
Teresa, I'm sorry.
Okay. No more than one exterior stage or amplified sound. We have the original live music festival, and he sets up a bunch of little stages. They're small, but they're close.
This is just for Bike Week.
Okay. Well, we could have a bunch of little stages set up for Bike Week. Again, I think it's, and you're getting into the. I think it. Well, I disagree. I disagree with that recommendation. Porta Johns, there should be some. I guess I'm not sure that retail should have to adhere to the same requirement that bars do or restaurants. I don't know. They certainly should be required, but.
Yeah, I mean, when I went around and looked at those with just predominantly tents,
Yeah,
the itinerant vendors, intermixed with the retail are food operations there and such.
Yeah.
On every one of them, there was food and drink being sold, and there was no opportunity for restrooms.
Yeah,
So
there should be.
I think perhaps on anywhere
really thought
there's
it
food or
but-
drink being sold.
Yeah,
how's that?
I'm with you on that. Yeah, yep. We sell some beer in bottles, but no one is allowed to leave a venue with alcohol. So I don't know how the glass is leaving the private venues. So, I mean, as long as the glass is on the private venue, is it your problem?
Well, I just see a lot of walking up and down the street with beer these days, too. Bottles and everything. I mean, not everyone is perhaps complying with the rules. And when we have the amount of police on Main Street reduced as what it's been lately, I'm seeing very little enforcement.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah.
It's not that big a deal
Yeah.
to me. It's just, I've heard of some
with me,
some
yeah.
foot
I don't
issues
sell it
and stuff.
outside anywhere, but,
Well, this is only exterior.
yeah, I see that, but, yeah.
I just want to say one thing on that. People who drink beer, I don't drink beer because I don't like it, but people who drink beer like drinking it out of those glass bottles. I mean, it's whole part of drinking beer, is it not? I mean, don't they want to drink it out of the bottle?
Usually it's out of a keg into a plastic cup these days.
I mean, if you go to any large sporting event, any
Yeah,
football
there's
game or
no
anything,
bottles.
they're plastic bottles. I mean, pretty much. You
Oh.
None are allowed at all.
Okay. Good. Okay.
They become missiles.
Okay. Good. Good point.
Okay.
I hadn't thought of that.
Go ahead, Teresa.
I disagree with the limits suggested on tents.
Any suggestions at all, or to try and?
Again, the Bike Week Task Force, they review these tents and the sizes of them.
But there's no
I guess, what is the
limitations on it.
objection to a large tent?
The idea is, why motivate someone to have an empty piece of property with all or mostly tents on it as opposed to a building on it? That's the idea.
Well, there has to be a building affiliated with the outside use.
Didn't we already agree with that?
Yeah.
I think it was with
Yeah.
the redevelopment, or the certain amount of tents per building is what we were already agreeing upon. So if you have 3,000 square foot building, you're allowed to have a certain percentage of tents on your property. I think that's what we were already agreeing upon from when we were talking about the land redevelopment code.
Okay, but this is slightly different.
I mean, it can incorporate the same thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Can't remember what that was. This was just.
So you're concerned that it's motivating people to knock down buildings
Yes.
to have outside
and not
areas?
build new buildings.
Well, I guess I'm a case in point of that. I'm not sure I understand.
Teresa, just to give instances where you've seen it happen. I mean,
Yeah.
even Hot Leathers is operating a tent on property that was knocked down. I believe the property, the jewelry store, Tombstone has property adjacent that is operating tent on the property, and quite honestly, there's a for sale sign on Beach Photo. What makes me not want to go knock it down and put a tent there and take advantage of this? I mean, and I've seen the for sale sign. I mean, I've seen the internet. There was a massive email that was sent out that Beach Photo is for sale. Well, I would hate to see that property be knocked down and have the property owner next door to take advantage of that to vending. It's a beautiful corner. It's a lot of property. I mean, you could put massive tents there, but do we want to see another structure demolished for that purpose? Like I said, it wasn't designed. I actually don't mind what you did. I'm not harping, or attacking you on it. I'm trying to prevent other buildings on Main Street following the same path.
Well,
and you know that Beach Photo's for sale.
speaking from personal experience, it's not an inexpensive venture to knock down a building and bring it to the standards that are required, because the city, there's some things you have to do with brick pavers and landscaping and I don't know.
But let me ask you something.
So, I
If-
mean,
if
it's not a dirt lot or just an asphalt lot.
But using the beach photo as an example, would an itinerant vendor pay as much money for the interior space of beach photo as he would had the property been demolished and he put a tent up there for Bike Week?
Square footage to square footage? Same
So-
amount of space, same amount of space? What do we,
Well, I mean, I'm just, I would think that right now there's an incentive that has been created on Main Street for property owners to knock down their buildings and be able to rent it to itinerant vending. And I don't think that we should support that.
well, and do you really want me to get started on parking in the Main Street area?
I'm not talking about parking.
I am, because technically that's what those places, I think, all are, is parking lots. I mean, that's what I have as a parking lot.
But
I've knocked down buildings and created a parking lot, and it helps my business every day. More so non-event than event, believe it or not. And, there's a real shortage of parking down there.
then I would rather, if that was the case, I would
So-
rather expand the zoning I'd rather create a new type of zoning that would allow a business to purchase property in residential area to be used solely as parking, period. So that way, for some of the homes that are behind the structures on Main Street, I would rather, if parking is the issue here, which that is not the reason why these buildings are being demolished, I'd rather create some kind of transitional zoning that precludes anybody from being able to do anything other than add parking to their businesses. And that way, it creates more of a buffer and creates more of an incentive for a property owner who does want to add parking to their businesses without demolishing an existing structure that happens to be on Main Street itself.
I think we're still arguing to the points of the Land Development Code. We're going into the parts of the Land Development Code here. The whole point is, I think we're getting off topic here.
Yeah.
We're talking about the chairman's revisions on the master guidelines. We're getting into points of arguing the master or the land redevelopment
we can
code.
revisit at a future.
Well, it's
Yeah. Okay, I'll continue if
Please,
I'll keep rolling along. I disagree with your timeline for setup. It's too tight.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you allowed now?
10 days prior, 5 days following.
What is it now?
10 days prior, 5 days following.
Yeah. And I am not sure why you want to redefine contiguous. You think smaller is better? Is that why? Or?
No, I think that somebody shouldn't buy something across the street and use that as part of their itinerant vending area when it's not truly contiguous.
Okay, so your objection is that they're using it for itinerant vending, or that it's not contiguous, or again, the base as an event, the objection is that it's itinerant vending? Is that it?
Well, that they're whatever they're setting up across the street as opposed to on their main property.
Okay. In other words, you just don't like a road running through it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think they've been putting parcels together in order to do that.
Yeah, I disagree with that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that do it?
Did you have one? I thought it was in there earlier that it couldn't be leased or something. The property couldn't be leased. Was that an earlier one?
I don't remember
Okay.
that at all.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Just. Nope.
No,
sir. Jim?
You know what?
Nope.
I just want to make one comment.
Please.
And this is strictly from a design perspective. we've all seen the master plan of Main Street, and if we were going to ever get close to anything like that beautiful master plan of Main Street, there would be no parking facing the front of Main Street on either side. And I think Dino's idea about special zoning in other areas, surrounding areas around Main Street, to provide parking for these businesses, that would really solve that, because I understand parking lots now, and I understand what the businesses are there now, but it doesn't seem to me, from a design plan, it doesn't seem to me that they're fitting for the future plan of Main Street. So I don't think they should really be encouraged at this time, because it's moving in the opposite direction that the master plan's moving into.
Well, we're not even talking parking here.
I know, but we just spent 30 minutes on it, so I'm making a comment.
Okay. We all agree parking's a real issue. All right. Tim?
I'm just trying to get listening to the comments that Teresa's made. So you agree on bathrooms and garbage, but no other changes, or basically everything else you disagree with?
And the bottles.
And the what?
And the bottles.
Well, kind of, sort of.
I think we should be allowed to serve beer in
Yeah.
bottles if we choose.
Okay, so what I'm saying is the garbage and bathroom. Do you see anything that can be improved as far as the Bike Week Task Force? Because, as the chairman said, when we had the representatives from the chamber come in here, they basically passed the buck and said all they do is filter through the things, the applications, and they send it to staff. Staff reviews it, but after that, their hands are washed of it. So, do you have any recommendations of what you think could improve the event to maybe tighten up a little bit to?
I think it would be helpful if there were some parking in the area for, a lot of times all the parking that is there goes to bikes only, and there's no parking for cars, trucks, or trailers. And if we had a bike event, you would think that we might have parking for other kinds of vehicles than just the bikes.
But see, I find
Probably not what you wanted to hear, is it?
Well, no, because you kind of just.
But seriously,
you kind of help. What I'm going to say is that the one time a year that you have the biggest amount of crowds come down to Main Street, you cover up every parking space with a tent or a vendor. So, but there no flexibility as far as saying if I've got a 3,000 square foot building, but I've got 10,000 square feet of outside space. I want a 10,000 square foot tent instead of saying, let me leave some parking available for my customers to come in, even if you do a turnaround.
well, I would like to make the point that during Bike Week, that there is a number of city streets that are closed and become parking lots. And therefore, there's a lot of additional parking that becomes available. Not to mention, certain large parking lots, like I said, are bike only, and there's a higher density, of course, with bikes than cars. But there is a lot of additional parking lots that are opened up on the streets. Several streets become parking.
Yeah, and the churches and
the churches,
and private parking lots, and in the last 2 years, in watching the private parking lots like along Halifax and such, they're not hardly filling up. And they're filling up far more with vehicles than they are with motorcycles.
There's a real paucity of parking for vehicles, non-bike vehicles.
I know from St. Demetrius, my church, I know that parking revenues and parking, as far as people parking, keep going down. And we haven't made any kind of significant or insignificant tweaks to the master plan forever. And we're losing our market share to the event. So, and in the process, I've seen more buildings being torn down on Main Street, and I've yet to see a building in the last 25 years go up on Main Street. So the master plan that and the Bike Week model that we're running, personally, I don't see it working. So to say that garbage and restrooms are the only thing that are slowing this thing down, and we can't see any other improvements to be made except to add some ancillary parking lots to the side. When the one time a year when I need parking, the last thing I'm going to do is fill up my parking spaces. My thing is to turn over parking spaces to get people in and out. Instead of somebody parking, instead of you eliminate all your parking and then cry that there's no parking. To me, this doesn't make sense. There needs to be some changes. As far as, I don't really disagree with anything on here as far as, the signage thing, I can understand that. As far as, the 2 layers of soundproofing versus 1 layer, I don't know. As far as us never, we shouldn't get involved in technical issues. We get involved in technical issues all the time. Be it parking garages in hotels, be it landscaping, lighting, be it whatever. We get involved in technical things all the time. So we might not have the expertise in it, but we sound off on it. I don't think it's fair that somebody can go tear down Beach Photo and put up a 1,000 square foot building just on and turn around and put it out there. So I think that you know what, maybe this is a good starting point. We put it out there for discussion. But right now, I heard a rumor on the street that is it the dog pound? Somebody just moved into there, or somebody moving in there, or whatever it was. I'm sorry?
We're talking about 601 Main Street.
Whatever.
Yes, there will be someone
in there? And are they going to be allowed itinerant vending?
Yes, in the same way they have in the past. There'd be some.
They're a new owner, and they haven't been open for 250 days. Why are they allowed to open?
It's a continuation of conditional use that was approved by this board and was called the Tower Bar. There was a change in the name of the business.
It's still the same operator?
Different people.
So I don't understand that either.
Yeah, well, I don't.
And those are the strict guidelines that we're operating under, and that's why I find it utterly ridiculous that we can't even that. I can see ways to improve my own business and say, hey, I do this wrong, I do this right. I never wake up in the morning and say, gosh, I do everything perfect. And obviously, this event is not working perfect because the itinerant vending hasn't grown Main Street like it was supposed to. Itinerant vending was supposed to be a venue to create income so properties could be improved and new properties be built. We've seen properties demolished. We see the event going to other areas that are just that are as restrictive as Daytona Beach. Okay, I don't know anywhere that allows outside amplified sound after midnight. I don't think they do it at Destination Daytona after midnight. The Bear Creek subdivision and all those people in Timber Creek out there, they never go for that. You go to, I go down to New Smyrna at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, all those bands stop outside. You go down to the pizza place down in Ponce Inlet on Friday night, 10 o'clock, they stop. So, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever. But I mean, I have no disagreements with this, and I'm going to say that, you know what, if we can't make any adjustment to this, and this is how it's going to be, then then I'd like to make an official request that the whole Masonry redevelopment area, anyone with commercial property should be allowed to have itinerant vending and should be allowed to do outside promotions and all this kind of stuff during the events. So, if we can figure out a way to sit there and try to improve the event, tighten it up, make it a little bit more professional, and make it's the same thing over and over again, and nothing changes. So either that, either we figure out a way to do it, or
open up the door for everybody in the city of Daytona Beach.
Oh, so let's start small. Masonry redevelopment, just in the Masonry redevelopment.
Open it up for everybody.
Well, we have done that. Because we've allowed itinerant vending out on International Speedway on the west side. At the Black, whatever it is. Didn't we allow it? We
Custom Cycles?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we've already deviated out of the 4 streets that we've allowed to do it. The ones the blighted streets. Well, little by little, the whole town's becoming blighted.
Basically, the blight designation was made back in 1982 or 1980, one of those 2 years. There's a point in time where you need to start cutting back. I mean, us treating one street out of the entire, beach side differently from everybody else is not equitable. But anyways, whenever you're ready, I have a motion that I'd like to make.
Carrie, did you want to make any comments?
I'm good, thank you.
Anything else, Randy? I'm good. All right. Any further comments? And Dino has the motion, I think.
Okay, I'd like to move for approval of the chairman's suggested revisions to the master plan guidelines as follows. I agree with Section 1, Section 2, tents, broader restrictions, porta-johns, on exterior amplified sound. I recommend that all stages shall be enclosed on back, sides is the number 3 on it, and top with at least 2 layers of tenting or soundproofing material designed to substantially reduce the sound being directed other than towards Main Street. All speakers should be contained within this sound shielding and placed at least 4 foot back from front edge of the sound shielding and at a maximum height of no more than 4 feet above the ground. And include, in the event, which is the last bullet point, in the event of any conflict between these guidelines and the City and Daytona Beach Noise Ordinance, Chapter 42, the more restrictive provisions shall control. I'm not including the posting of prices. I am including the trash container section, and I am including the section under master plan application, and I'm adding that any buildings demolished after passage of the revisions to the master plan guidelines would not be allowed to have any stage or tent set up on the subject property that was demolished or to be used to facilitate any outdoor vending and or staging area.
Okay.
That is my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any public discussion? John?
John Nicholson, 413 North Granbury Avenue. With regard to Main Street Station and their portalets, I went through the whole procedure on that. Teresa is correct. I went to the City Hall. It is in the master plan that they're required in the form to list how many portalets, all right? I went and I counted all the portalets up and down Main Street. 27 for you, 21, 17. Denny even had like a gazillion, surprisingly. But they are supposed to have 17 portalets on that back fence, not a one. I walked through that entire property, couldn't find a portalet. Told City said, well, that's okay, next year, all right? City knows they're supposed to do it, and they just didn't decide on it, all right? Secondly, restaurants. You only have one bar on Main Street. That's it. You only have one bar. All the rest are restaurants. So what you're talking about, you guys corrected or caused the problem several years ago when you allowed $10,000 worth of equipment and made you a restaurant. They don't have to serve food. And Main Street Station does not have a kitchen. All right? But you've allowed this to occur. Parking. You have plenty of parking. Trust me, on Main Street, you have a plethora of parking. It's just at the wrong end. All right? You need it. Dino talked about it. Remember the parking garage? And they said, okay, you get your parking garage 3 blocks away. Remember your discussion? All right? It's in the wrong location. When Teresa fills up her 2 parking lots, the one behind Dirty Harry's and the one in front, she has 100 parking spaces behind Full Moon Saloon. She is parking off of Peninsula on 2 locations. Is that behind the gas station? Is that not yours? On
At the gas
Peninsula?
station, yeah.
Okay. She supplies additional parking. I think there are 700, about half of all the parking that Main Street takes up with their vending, they have additional parking in the back. All right? So they're only using half of the available parking at any given time. Then they add parking. Because I talked to Patty Evans, I don't know if you remember Leisure Services, to put parking, paid parking on Peabody lot. And then I talked about taking over the PAL parking and add 7 additional streets to create all the motorcycle parking between Auditorium and Main Street. You'd be surprised how many motorcycles you can cram in on those parking lots, especially the way they're parked. So there's parking there. when you go to an event, you want to take up every available space from river to ocean with something for people to do. You don't want parking cars when they're walking down the street between vendors, all right? Secondly, vendors, I understand people that have a business, but when you go to an event anywhere, vendors are what makes the event. Food makes the event. Whatever happens, and although, I'm sorry about this, Teresa, but some of the auditory from the microphones are not to my liking. I do not like the C word referred to females, all right? I think that's offensive. Certain events, wet T-shirt contest, banana eating contest, I think are degrading and a little bit low class, but it happens, all right? Those are the things I think you should rein in on. The idea that the tents are there, even the massive ones. When I stood behind the tent, I don't remember the Jägermeister, the people that were on Main Street complained about the tent because they were right in front of it. You stood behind it and you could not hear a sound. So those thick plastic, that white plastic, can really muffle the sound. The clear one doesn't, but the solid ones will do it. The CRA should get more involved. When the CRA puts money into it, they did that on Coates behind Cruising Cafe. The CRA paid to bulldoze the houses, create a parking lot. The city generated $28,000 a year from that parking and gave it to the general fund, and then had to take out $25,000 a year to pay for the lease, which doesn't make sense to me. If you're making money, the CRA shouldn't lose money, and it lost $25,000 a year to pay for the lease. So the CRA, whenever they do anything on public property, should get involved and make money to pour back into the CRA rather than let somebody else make the money. The prices. Again, I like your idea about prices, because when you go down, I don't remember paying $3 for a turkey leg. I thought that was expensive when I came up from Miami. When they went to $5 and then $7, and then somebody charged $11. $11 was too much for a turkey leg, and I stopped buying. But they don't list their prices. You have to pay for it first, because once you order it, it's yours. So you have to pay for it. So a sign on those vendors, you have no idea what a gyro costs. Is it 5? Is it 7? Is it 12? Is it 15? So I like the idea of having a price on it so that the buyer beware. We went through this, remember, with the iron-ons? They had to post it or else you didn't have to pay, because it was really being abused, and I think this is being abused. Bands, I would rather have the band in front of Main Street Station than behind, because I think when Benny did this years ago, the whole idea was that he would not put anything back there but parking, and slowly it's gone. And I think there's like 6 tubs and 5 bars, and then the band is back there. It's huge back there. So I would think that you should end up doing that. And lastly, on your clearing of lots, you were talking about beachside photo. You're talking about not having vending. Well, part of Main Street now is the bars, the tubs. So if they clear a lot and put a bar there, it's just as bad as having vending. So is there some way of saying no outside activity when they tear down a building, rather than just narrow it down to vending? Because bars and tubs are not vending. They're sales. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? Okay. Any further discussion amongst the board?
I need to correct one thing, is that I said any building demolished. It should say property from any building demolished after passage of the revisions, because it's the property that's going to be used, not the demolished building.
Okay, so you're asking to amend your motion?
Yeah, I'm asking to amend my motion to say property from any buildings demolished after passage of the revision to the master plan guidelines will not be allowed to have any stage or tent set up on the subject property that was demolished, or to be used to facilitate any outdoor vending and or staging area.
Okay, very good.
Just as a point of clarification here, what are we voting on? You said for approval, but are we? We're making a recommendation to the.
Yeah, that's what I was going to.
Okay.
Yes. What I did was
to planning board or city commission, or how's it as a recommendation for guideline revision?
It's the city commission that makes policy.
So this is a recommendation to the city commission.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm making a recommendation, and just the items that I removed, maybe that's the best way to explain it. The items that I removed from the chairman's suggested revisions is I removed the part where it says no more than one exterior stage or amplified sound system per site, because we talked about that. I removed the part that says no stages, including any speakers, shall be located within 300 feet of any exterior amplified sound, because I could see the Main Street station wanting to have their stage set up near Main Street, and I don't think just because Boot Hill has one and it's within 300 feet, I didn't think that would be fair. I removed
Dino, excuse me, did you remove that first paragraph from the exterior amplified
the
sound?
contiguous. I left in.
Under exterior?
Exterior amplified sound.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
Wait, which
Okay.
one? Yeah, no, and I removed no more than one exterior stage or amplified sound per site.
Yep, got it.
Yeah, I removed
That
that
whole
one.
paragraph's
I'm
out?
sorry, yes.
Okay.
I removed that one. I removed the no stage, including any speakers, shall be located within 300
Yep.
feet. I removed any exterior amplified sound shall be used only for the playing of music, because even the city attorney said that would be hard to quantify as to how to do. I removed the all exterior amplified sound shall cease operations at midnight on Sunday through and including Thursday, and I removed all existing facilities and any alternative vendor shall prominently post all prices for any product, merchandise, food, drink, or service. So I removed all of those from the recommended guidelines and added the one about demolishing buildings.
And can I have a read back on the demolishing buildings?
Yeah, the way I phrased it, is, and I did it right here, but property from any property from any buildings demolished after passage of the revisions to the master plan guidelines would not be allowed to have any stage or tent set up on the subject property that was demolished, or to be used to facilitate any outdoor vending and or staging area. So that way the building that was demolished, the property itself would not be used to facilitate an outdoor staging area. So if they demolished it for parking, then they're going to have to use it for parking.
So if there's a large store and they knocked it down and they wanted to build a restaurant that had an open area with, open seating, outdoor seating, sort of like an outdoor patio with tables and chairs, they couldn't do it.
Oh, you're saying if they were to rebuild building onto that side, well, that would come before us, and then we could address that then, but that's...
So they've got to come beg for...
Well, they would come before us anyways.
Yeah, but but by the definition, it wouldn't be allowed.
No, if it's a year-round approved activity, they certainly could do that and continue that through any special event.
Yeah.
This is only for a special event approval permission guidelines. This doesn't affect your
This is a
day-to-day.
bike week guideline,
Yeah.
and if it's on a piece of property where you've demolished a building, that ground can never be used in this outdoor application, is how I hear it.
If you ask for a variance, you'd have to come up in front of the board to ask for a variance, saying, I built a new property, can I please?
So you'd have to come ask for permission to use it?
Wait,
during the bike
would
week?
it, can we just clarify, it's if it remains vacant, right? If they wanted to build something new and be an
Let me
operating...
add, if they demolish the property, you want to say, and it remains vacant.
If you're trying to address the problem she just pointed out, because the way it's stated so far, she is right.
No, I think, maybe I'm misunderstanding what Teresa's asking. Are you saying, like, if somebody builds a building and puts outdoor seating for a restaurant, that during bike week they have to remove that because it's not allowed?
They can't use it.
Yes, yeah, they can. What he's saying is for vending and stuff like that, and if they do want to vend something out there, then they can go like other places on Main Street and get a TPA, because you're not prohibited from getting a TPA.
How about this? If I added the language at the end that said, however, if subject building, if subject property is to rebuild a building that was demolished, and the building is a minimum of the same size of the building that was demolished, then they would be grandfather, I mean, then they would be able to enjoy the same master guidelines. See,
Wait a minute, I'm totally confusing this. If you're operating a legitimate year-round business with outdoor seating and Bike Week comes along and they throw out the whatever the statute is that allows for outdoor vending, does not mean you make a legal business illegal because they're not doing illegal activity that's been made legal.
What's
I mean, that's
Because these guidelines only apply if you're making an application under the master plan for a.
But what Dino is describing is if it is on a piece of property where you have demolished a building, and I'm saying if you have rebuilt to a certain extent and you have an outdoor area. He's saying that outdoor area can no longer be used for some of these other purposes. I guess
not the intent.
But then that person can go and get a TPA like everyone else in the city has to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all,
I didn't hear that qualification.
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but in the 50 years plus, we have not seen that happen, okay? If that were to happen, we will address it. Let's just keep it simple, which is still complicated.
Well,
and go with this, because what the scenario you're saying, I'm telling you, in the last 50 years, we have not seen it happen, not once. So we're addressing a hypothetical that we probably will never see happen.
Well, I'm just going to make this final statement. And my sense is that your objection is to itinerant vending. And I feel that itinerant vending is not an ill. It is a very important element of these events. And it is a significant form of income for many landowners on that street. And I feel that any that attempts to restrict the vending, I'm just not generally inclined to favor.
That's very understandable.
Understood. All right. May we have a roll call, please?
I have
Oh,
another comment.
I'm
I have
sorry.
a comment. I have a problem voting on this to make a recommendation because some of the things that are in the guidelines I agree with and some I do not agree with. So I think that these are pretty sizable issues that we're bringing up that affect people financially in their business. So I have a problem. I think we need to separate some of these out or something. Maybe we need to continue to next month, because I don't think you can. I'm not comfortable voting for all of these to be recommended.
Suzanne,
Maybe can you go through again?
Yeah.
What's been struck and what's been done?
Well,
Yes.
I think we've
I
covered that.
understand
I
that.
think we've got that.
I got that.
If it gets turned down, we want to reconsider and do it on an item-by-item basis, we certainly can do that. Okay? Why don't we, move along and call it a night? And it's been a good discussion at the very least.
no, I mean, let's, I made a motion.
we need
There's a
to-
second, let's call the question.
Yeah, let's have a vote, please.
Mr. Pasqualakis?
Yes.
Mr. Kostakis?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
No.
Mr. Leek?
No.
Ms. Register?
No.
Mr. Phillips?
No.
Ms. Stone?
No.
Chairman Webster?
Yes. And it fails.
Then, one last thing. I'd like to make a motion that we go item by item to each of your sections and vote for or favor of each item.
Okay.
But I would like to include that last language on the demolition of the building also. So, would you like me to just, I'll start off one at a time. Section 1.
1 second, Dino. Can we agree to go through this in an abbreviated manner and let him just announce it, and we'll have a second here, and then we'll just be able to vote without further discussion on each point? Is that fair?
So we're going to do the item by item tonight?
Right now.
I think we should postpone it till next month.
I agree with Suzanne.
We've been putting this off at least 10 times in how many years? We finally got the item here. I'd rather just go item by item and vote on each item. Number 1 would be redefine contiguous.
I mean, don't go ahead and start reading it.
No.
Decide if we're going to do it.
Okay, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Because like Suzanne said, these recommendations affect a lot of people, and quite honestly, like, this item has been on the agenda many months, and I've stopped telling people about it and to come because, but.
Well, then why don't we roll it till next month, okay? And
Okay.
then we will bring it back up,
I would
and we
appreciate
can maybe address them on a topic by topic. And maybe we can make some headway that way.
Yeah, I think it would
That's
be
fair.
better. Thanks.
Glad to do it.
And I would ask that in terms of drafting that up, I mean, you can work off the minutes.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be verbatim. So I'd strongly recommend that someone has the initiative here to put this into some kind of a motion next time.
If we could perhaps get the minutes before, like Saturday before the meeting then.
Oh, we can certainly get out
a draft of them.
we get them we get them fairly early now.
Okay,
so
good.
That's
Let's
not
do that,
the
then.
issue. Okay.
All right. Reed, drive-through facilities.
Okay. Yeah. I have the applicant here.
Oh,
for the
that's
other
right. I'm sorry.
item,
We
and
have.
if
We're going back to number 6.
Yes.
Sorry about that, Joe. Got to listen through all that. That's what you get for being late, guy.
That's all right.
All right. We're going back to, I believe it's item 6, correct?
Yes, and what I'd like to do is this is about 110 Ocean Avenue, and once again, I'd like to depart from going first as staff, and I think you've read the report, hopefully, and this is an opportunity for the applicant to get up and just kind of walk you through, and I have some slides here if that'll help. On what we're doing. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Joe Hopkins. I'm an engineer with the Performance Group here in Daytona Beach at 100 Marina Point Drive. I have the pleasure of representing KRK Investments. He's the property owner, Dick Kehoe, which many of you probably know. He owns the property, and what we have done is we embarked on a redevelopment of this property through the Site Plan Review Committee to bring the site into compliance for use as a parking lot. We didn't have an end user at the time. We were just trying to utilize the property as a permitted parking lot, and went through a series of staff reviews to identify interior buffers, perimeter landscaping, irrigation, things of that sort. So we went through that process already, and about a year and a half ago, actually. And then more recently, we had an interest by a couple of different people to occupy the building. Both of them were restaurant users, so we went through a special exception process since this use had been discontinued for a period of time, secured the special exception to reestablish the restaurant on the property. One of the things that we've been very, very sensitive to is, particularly with the Ocean Deck and KRK, is parking in this immediate area. We've had issues with people parking and going to the beach, people parking and going to the restaurant, then going to the beach for the whole day. And we felt that there needed to be some control, if you will, on reestablishing this restaurant and then utilizing the parking lot. So what we've done is made a request to the planning board or to the city to rezone this to a PCD or Planned Redevelopment District. And one of the main ingredients in that Planned Redevelopment District is to get a reduction in the required amount of parking for the restaurant so that we can control the remaining portion of the parking lot. And it sounds selfish in a sense, but really what it does is it allows us to control who comes and goes in and out of this site. This area encourages pedestrian traffic. The Land Development Code doesn't really recognize that. So I think we're not really out of bounds to look for a reduction in the required parking for a restaurant. Normally, a restaurant of this caliber would require one space for every 50 square feet of customer service area. This is a little over 2,000 square feet of customer service area. We've got about 82 seats that are proposed within the Starbucks restaurant. And what we've done in the PRD is requested a ratio of one space for every 100 square feet of customer service area, recognizing that we have a drive-through. We're going to get a lot of vehicular customers that way, and then also we recognize that we're going to get a lot of pedestrian traffic as well. So those are the PRD. We did include some other uses. Based on the lease with Starbucks, I really doubt that we're going to take advantage of these other uses that are listed. But in going through the rezoning, we felt encumbered to build as much as we can in flexibility for other potential uses. So in your package, you've got a collection of everything that we've done so far. You've got a copy of the site plan that was approved by the city that shows the landscaping improvements, the improvements that we plan to do on the site to bring it into compliance, increasing the buffers along A1A, the landscaping, interior to the site, and so forth. The other information you have in here is the variance approval that we obtained from the Board of Adjustment to reestablish the restaurant. The third thing you have in your package is the architectural elevations from Starbucks themselves, which shows how they plan to improve the property. One of the key components in the redevelopment of the building is that on the north two-thirds of the building, they're actually going to open up to the atmosphere. There's going to be the windows will be removed, and some of the other structure will be removed, so it'd be like an open pavilion for outdoor seating. And they felt that it was a component that they created. We gave them the guidelines, the redevelopment guidelines within the city, and this is how they attempted to incorporate a pedestrian-friendly improvement to the building. This is an outstanding corporate citizen. I mean, the facility that they have right now at Ocean Walk is congested, to say the least. I don't go there because I can't get to it. And I'm not going to walk across the pedestrian walk and park in the parking lot to get a cup of coffee. It's just not going to happen. So for Starbucks, this is, I think, a very key site to them. It facilitates a tremendous amount more accessibility and business for them. And I think we're grateful to have a corporate citizen of this stature stay in the community and not give up on the site that they had at Ocean Walk and look to actually invest and expand into this community. So those are the components that we've shared with you. The PRD is I don't believe that you got a copy of the PRD, but this is we're under staff review right now with the rezoning request. This will go before the planning board. It'll also go before the city commission for final approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have regarding the redevelopment. Everything that we have proposed is in front of you, and I'd be more than happy to talk about the components.
Are they going to be serving more than a typical Starbucks?
No, sir.
Okay. It just seems like a larger kitchen area or whatever going on there. Or,
the building, we're not proposing any metamorphic structural changes in this building. They're occupying the building, and if you've looked at this site, it's really a tough site with the amount of elevation difference between A1A and Ocean Avenue, and the retaining walls and all of the components with that structure. There's not much we can do creatively. So they elected to work within the confines of the building. And like I said, the outdoor seating area I think is a real good component.
do we have any questions or comments from the board?
What are you thinking your drive-through and your pedestrian traffic will be as a percentage of the overall business at the site?
Teresa, I think it's a guess, but I would say probably 40 to 50% of the traffic.
I would think so. Yeah.
I know I was at a Starbucks in Port Orange earlier this evening. I couldn't believe it at 5 o'clock, and the drive-through line was stacked up.
Which,
unbelievable.
Which apparently they're moving up the drive-through window. How many feet to try to avoid?
It's about 2 vehicle positions is what it does, and we recognize that, and we're talking with staff about it. Obviously we don't want to get traffic backed up on A1A, and the way the driveway is and the way the site's configured, we can actually put cars side by side if it became a congested situation. Hopefully that won't happen. I'm not sure what their what their time is, for order to pick up, but I would think it's pretty rapid.
Okay.
I had a question about the staff mentioned that you guys would like to reuse the signposts. Has there been a decision made about whether or not you're going to do that or not?
Reed and I had a discussion about that. When I was reviewing the land development code and the sign ordinance, there is an amendment that I wasn't aware of that's not published on the website, and we're not allowed.
Tricky stuff. Man.
We're not allowed to keep the sign. We
Okay.
have to dismantle the signs and put monument signs in.
Okay.
Talk
that'll
to
be
the property owner. We're in agreement to do that.
And that's the signs that are represented in the graphic that I think it's listed as a super graphic or
The super graphic that you see is actually a super graphic that's going to be imposed onto the building.
So you're going to have additional signage to that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you're saying the post sign will be brought down?
Yes, we're not allowed in this district to have pole signs. They have to be ground-mounted signs with a maximum 2-foot base. So we're going to take them down and build new signs.
Okay. The only reason I have a puzzled look on my face is that just last year, we put the big post sign for Joe's Crab Shack right there on there when they right next door.
And I believe they had a special use permit of some kind for that purpose. So,
No, I just have a puzzled look on my face. Try to explain it.
Yeah, and I understand. And
the Joe's Crab Shack rule.
but there are design standards that are an appendix, so they don't show up in when you go to Municode. So there is a product out there that we use to try to get a better signs and some other better standards out there, and they're visual. So that's reference, but it's hard to find.
We're in agreement with that, Dino. Not a problem. I'm a little bit concerned with the monument signs being so close to the pedestrian level and sidewalks for somebody to pop them, throw something at them or whatever. But we'll get with the sign company and get whatever safeguards.
And now Starbucks is going to be your tenant?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, because I saw this dotted line, and I didn't know if the property was, like, there's a dotted line, like, between the north side and the south side. And I know I read in the staff report that the 2 handicap spaces from the south side were going to be part of the north side, but I didn't know if that dotted line had any significance,
Not necessarily, but I guess it's a visual representation of how we bifurcated the parking. The southern section is going to be regulated. The northern section is not going to be regulated.
Right. The southern side, but the 2 handicap will go to Starbucks.
That's correct.
Okay.
How is it regulated?
The Ocean Deck has an independent group that regulates the parking. They actually manage the parking for them. And they're going to have them occupy this portion of the site as well. That's our intent at this point.
It's not that automotive one that the hotel was going to use.
Okay, now I understand the whole parking issue with.
No, and we're there's a lot of logistics in this. And talking with Starbucks, what if their section of the lot's full and somebody wants to come park? That's how part of the management that we're negotiating and coordinating and drafting at this point. It's parking is critical. I mean, it really is an issue in this area. So, I'm sorry, you had a question.
I think Ocean Deck's valet uses that to park their cars there, don't they?
That's correct.
That's what the use is.
That's correct. That was the use that we had permitted, and it was a temporary. We had approval for a temporary parking lot. Then we went through the site plan review committee to have it as a permanent parking lot, and we secured that approval with all the landscaping and all the other conditions that were attached to that. Then the tenant came along. Now it's a parking lot and a restaurant site. So I think we're getting the best of both worlds. There is a tremendous public benefit here to have that building occupied and to have the site itself improved to meet the current city standards. So we've got a win-win here, I think.
Well, I can see the parking for the Ocean Deck being more later and the Starbucks being more earlier, and
Yeah,
some of that too going
we looked
on,
at that. I don't. I think there is going to be some fluctuation in the demands, and that's going to aid in helping us manage parking issues and so forth.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? Any public discussion or questions? John, short and sweet, please.
Before I depart, I just want to make sure that the recommendation, I'm hoping for your support for this redevelopment plan, but also a recommendation to the planning board regarding the rezoning as well.
What's up on our end? This is.
We have architectural elevations. The site plan, I assure you, is to the greatest extent in compliance with the city code. But a recommendation for the rezoning would be.
Carrie, that's what we have up.
That is.
Yeah, usually after they take public comment, they'll ask for a motion and move on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's for the rezoning.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. John? Thanks, Joe.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. This is an ideal location for this product. Starbucks has been going for the last year and a half into drive-thrus. It's happened in Miami. You see it in Fort Lauderdale. You see it in Palm Beach. This will help. Rossellini's across the street. There is an image of Starbucks being pricey. Rossellini's is pricey. So those that would go to Starbucks would have a tendency now to see Rossellini's, and hopefully Rossellini's will benefit from it. Of course, Ocean Deck, everybody knows about Ocean Deck. It's always packed. So the only problem I have, I think this is fantastic. It's also good for this side of Main Street. Everybody walks around Ocean Walk in the north end of Main Street. They get to Main Street and they stop dead. Nobody walks down A1A, nor do they walk down Main Street. This will pull more people south of Main Street, and then everybody there will benefit. Gary will benefit, David, the whole bunch. But my problem with this is if you go to a Starbucks in South Dade or in Miami Beach, you go in Palm Beach, they're well landscaped. I can't see that from your diagram. That's the problem I've always had with you is when you see an aerial view, you're looking down, okay? When you see a frontal view, they take all the trees away because the whole idea is to show the buildings. But you never see the plants and the buildings together, what it's actually going to look like.
Well, John, right now we're just looking at this.
Oh, I understand that. But in the future, I'm asking you to have a diagram so that you can see what the plantings are like. Because going into the future, okay, if that's the new one, that looks like the old one to me.
That's existing.
Okay, that does not look like the new one. Right. But I think you ought to see what it's going to look like, because if we're going into the 21st century, hopefully, with all this stuff, you don't want 19th century landscaping, which is what we have in our code. Everybody that Starbucks is doing this is very lush. So then all of a sudden we get like Walgreens on Seabreeze, minimal landscaping. Ormond Beach has fantastic landscaping in their Walgreens. They were built 6 months apart. We got the garbage and they got the well-landscaped one. So I don't want us to keep appropriating under-landscaped buildings. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Do we have a motion?
I move for approval.
Okay. Got a motion?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
I think the fact that Wendy's is finally not going to be a vacant
Hey,
building.
we may vote for something. Yay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Joe. Good project.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all being patient about my party.
No problem.
I did want to leave you with the fact that the planning board meets on February 27th. 6 p.m.
All right. Drive-through facilities and fees in lieu.
That is Mr. Paspalakis' request to do two things. One was to give you some information about the fee in lieu of parking spaces, and so you have that information. And Dino, if you want to speak,
We just
to that.
approved the drive-through facility, right?
Yes, it
I
is.
know. Well, this one, the drive-through facility, we actually should look at right now. I mean, there's so many places that are closed or vacant, and I know that the consultants recommended against drive-through facilities in the E-zone, and I really don't understand it. And like I said in the past, any problems with drive-through facilities could be addressed through the land development code. If it's the headlights of the cars, we could build a taller screening device to the residential section or what have you. If it's the noise, we could cut it down after midnight, or if we could address whatever issues that need to be addressed. But I do think that we should open up the door for drive-through facilities, especially in the, what is that, T3?
Yeah, T3, T4, they're kind
Okay.
of exchanged along ISB. Yeah, and I think staff's concern is really going to be based on proximity to the highest pedestrian areas. A concern about just having drive-through facilities of any kind, bank or whatever it might be. There's some concern there about having it where you're trying to promote a lot of pedestrian use.
Yeah, but there is a lot of pedestrian use in front of the Burger King. There's going to be a lot of pedestrian use in front of the Starbucks. So I don't consider that as much of a issue as I do. I don't consider that. I mean, I don't. I guess that could be addressed through the way.
From a planning standpoint, I'd like to see a lot more where we have intensive urban pedestrian areas to limit a lot of the automobile traffic and driveways in those areas. So I'm not talking about many places. I'm talking about some of our just where we have buildings right up to the street, like on Beach Street, on Main Street. That's not a place to really be putting a drive-through.
Oh, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about A1A corridor.
and ISB. Yep. So it's just getting the geography, the zoning right about where those should be and not be. So that's my only point.
So would you like us to just say, could staff make a recommendation to this board for us to review?
And my recommendation is that we're going through the review right now with the Land Development Code rewrite. I think it's a good opportunity, since we've had quite a bit of discussion, to see if that might work its way into an introduction of that code. I mean, it's already there, so as we go through the process with the Planning Board and the City Commission, there's an opportunity to see if we can introduce that again, or we can do a separate text amendment, and staff will write that up. So I'll take that back and.
Either way is fine with
Yeah.
me. I don't know what does the board want to do.
I have no objection to considering it. I think it's prudent to have some drive-throughs in appropriate areas.
Agreed.
So why don't you see what you can do with that, Reed?
All right.
Okay. Redevelopment projects update.
Oh wait, there's also the fees in lieu of.
We got the information.
Okay.
I mean, do we need to discuss it or?
No, just
Okay.
if you want to handle that the same way, you said that it's already part of your part of the.
Well, it's a recommendation of the E-zone master plan. What I would say is this board is very interested in parking, resolving parking. So I think down the road, and maybe this has to be workshop, and maybe this is not something we do up here, but we carve out some time to do this separately. So it's up to you how you want to handle that.
I think it's pretty simple. Paul McKittrick already said he's already come up with the figure of $10,000 per parking space. So we just throw out a land development code ordinance that says that if you want to, if you have required parking and you'd like to trade off a couple of the spaces, for additional landscaping or building or what have you, then you pay $10,000 per space.
Okay.
What's that? What Paul McKittrick told me was that that $10,000 a space was tabulated from the cost of taking an average parking garage and what the cost per space would be within that establishment. And then this money would go towards a fund that would go towards the building of a future parking garage.
So that would be an annual fund that this person would have to pay for a parking spot? Is what I was getting. No, it's a one-time.
It's a one-time.
It's
Like, for instance, using the bungee that came before us, they had 0 parking, and they had a requirement of having 30 parking spaces. If they, using the $10,000 figure, they would have to put $300,000 towards the parking garage, which is a sizable sum, but at the same time, that developer probably would have done it.
Certainly creative.
Okay. Let me bring it back and talk with some of the staff that will have to
please
take a look at this. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now the redevelopment projects update.
I only will tell you that December was a great, fantastic month for us, from the end of the year, and that we had the hotel, Hard Rock Hotel, was approved, and we also had the opportunity to see some other good news, just generally in the economic news about the employment in this area. The projections that Manpower has, I think, is great. I think what we've heard about the Speedway, and even though it's not there in Main Street, it really has an impact on what we're doing over here. And it all ties together. And so Daytona Beach, whether you're talking about east or west, there's a lot going on. And our office is seeing a lot of activity. So it's not just in the newspaper or somebody making projections. It's real. So we're excited to see it, and we're looking for more.
Good to hear. Okay, board comments. Anybody need to say anything else?
We need to appoint a chair.
Oh, that's right. Did I miss that? I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's up to you. We can do that next time. I just want to make sure at some point we have a vice chair.
Yeah, we really need to deal with the vice chair until I'm removed also, or whatever.
Did the commission vote on, or?
No, there has been no movement on putting the board members forward. There is activity now. I think it will be on the February agenda for action.
Okay. Do y'all want to get a vice chair now, or just wait and?
Up to you.
Well, if we wait until after February, after we know who's going to be here and who's not, that might make more sense versus
That's true.
voting somebody now. That
Okay. Sounds good. Why don't we pass on that then?
Sure.
All right.
Very good. Thank you.
No board comments? We'll stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.